Children and youth, and we'll have more members join us as we get started. I wanted to be sensitive to everyone else's time. The purpose of this public hearing is to hear testimony on resolution number 170410. And I wanted to, can the clerk please read the title of the resolution?
Resolution number 170410, resolution authorizing the Joint City Council Committees on Public Safety and Children and the Youth to hold hearings reviewing the impact of flavored tobacco products such as hood wraps or 4Ks on the youth of Philadelphia.
So we've put up a Exhibit A, if you would, at the testimony table for everyone to just take a look at and see what they see and see what I saw. And this kind of started by Grandpop, and affectionately known as Pop-Pop, picking his granddaughter up to take her to school. It is approximately a 5-mile sojourn from my house to her school, and we were going through several neighborhoods, and I was trying, my duties were to pick her up a healthy lunch and a snack. And as I did so, I stopped at a store to do that, and this is what I saw. I saw flavored tobacco right in close proximity to some of her favorite candies, and that's why we did the display today. As a child, I remember my mother and father sending me to the corner store. My dad wanted a pack of Pall Malls and a Dr. Pepper, and my mother wanted Virginia Slims and a Pepsi. The price back then was a little over $4 for both of those things, which left me a nice healthy tip of about $1 to keep for myself. Little did I know the cost of those cigarettes and soda would cost me literally both of my parents. My father died of lung cancer, and 4 years later, we found my mother in her home with a partially burnt cigarette still in the ashtray as she suffered a massive stroke. I hold no grudges against the cigarette companies. In fact, I have smoked cigarettes in my lifetime. You see, my mother and father's choices were adult choices. Bad ones, but they were adult choices. Young people today use these flavored tobacco wraps, aka hood wraps, for a number of non-tobacco related uses, and I don't fault them because, again, those are adult choices. But these hood wraps and these fruit punches and these wild berry wraps and watermelon flavored wraps right next to candies, they don't make them adult decisions, they make them children's decisions. And what this is about today, product placement for me. This is about subliminal seduction to me. My children knew how to say McDonald's before they knew how to say daddy. And that was because of strict marketing, psychological impact of seeing the happy clown. Clowns aren't so cool today. It has changed that. But those are the images that they saw, and they knew how to say McDonald's before they knew how to say granola mix. That is the world of marketing, and children are susceptible to those imageries more so than adults. For years, subliminal seduction has been used to hook adults on cigarettes, and it made it perfectly clear, I want to make it perfectly clear, that I am a co-sponsor on decriminalization of marijuana. But that does not mean I'm giving a green light to children to make those mind-altering decisions based on product placement. And anyone representing tobacco is free to come up and look at what I saw, and the horror in which marketing can be used on formidable minds, and disproportionately in zip codes of low and moderate income and poor people, specifically targeted towards them. And so with that, I'd like to get started. Ms. Williams, would you please say the names? My colleague Bill Greenlee is here. Would you like to?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very quickly, first want to thank you for bringing this to the attention of so many people. I was not aware of that, and I think the display says it all. In a perfect world, I would like nobody to smoke. I've had family members also suffer from the result of cigarette smoking, but this is, as you said, that was adult decisions. This is clearly trying to get children on tobacco much earlier before they can make those informed decisions. So again, I appreciate you bringing that to the attention of everybody, and I think this is a very important issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman, you've been an advocate for causes. I would almost call you second generation because of who you work for, Councilman Cohen, but truly you have been a moral compass for this council, and I appreciate your attendance here today. Ms. Williams, would you bring up the names of the people to testify?
Vanessa Lowry Brown and Dr. Thomas Farley.
Dr. Farley is in the room here.
Come to the witness stand, please, for on his behalf. Pull the mic, don't eat my candy.
Excuse me, Councilman Jones.
My staff have already claimed all of that candy on there mixed in. So have a seat.
Dr. Farley, the Health Commissioner, is on his way. He's en route.
Okay,
He'll be here in a few minutes.
So we'll wait and.
Sure.
Who are the next people to testify?
Thank you.
Dr. Brian Jensen, Reverend Leroy Miles, and Reverend Jesse Brown.
Would you all please come to the witness testimony? It's not your first time, Doctor. Not your first time, Reverend.
That's Dr. Farley.
Commissioner? All right.
Thank you.
Don't hurt yourself getting there. We'll be okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
And do not, I'll give everybody the same instruction. Do not eat my candy mixed with the hood wraps.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I'm late. Let me just organize my thought for a minute.
Commissioner, good morning. Welcome. State your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you very much. I'm Thomas Farley. I'm the Health Commissioner for Philadelphia. Good morning, Chairman Jones, and thanks for the opportunity to testify on this important topic. I think you have my written testimony, but if I could, I wanted to speak a little more informally. I want to talk about the marketing technique for tobacco products, that is the use of flavorings. First, a little bit of background on smoking. Smoking is the #1 underlying killer in Philadelphia. There have been different estimates over the years about how many people it's responsible for killing each year. With new data from the Centers for Disease Control, we estimate it's 3,600 people per year in Philadelphia, which is a lot. Those are people who don't die suddenly as they would from, say, a car crash. They tend to die a slow, painful death from cancer or from heart failure or from the disability from a stroke. Now, over the years, smoking rates have gradually fallen. That's good news. Used to be that close to half of adults smoked. Now we're down to 22% of adults in Philadelphia smoke, which is higher than pretty much every other major city, but down from where we were decades ago. Among teenagers, about 30% used to smoke cigarettes. Now we're down to about 7%. That's good news. But in response to that, the tobacco companies continue to devise new methods to try to keep customers. And because 90% of smokers start before the age of 18, for the most part, that means that they're targeting children. Now, tobacco leaves don't grow naturally with flavorings. The tobacco companies deliberately infuse these products with chemicals to try to get customers to start smoking and to get them to keep smoking. There are two types of flavorings I want to talk about today. There are candy flavorings and there's the use of menthol. As far as candy flavorings, there are cigarillos that are sold throughout the city, particularly in minority neighborhoods, that are flavored with flavorings like watermelon and fruit punch and French vanilla. I think we got a few examples right here that are pretty impressive. These are the same chemicals that are used to flavor candy, like Jolly Ranchers and Lifesavers and Kool-Aid, to make it easier for children to make the transition from candy to smoking. And they're sold in these bright colored packs right next to candy on the shelves. And they're sold, as you see from the prices here, at 4 for 99 cents or 5 for 99 cents. The sort of prices that kids can afford, as opposed to $10 for a pack of cigarettes. So these are the penny candy of tobacco products. And they're designed specifically to entice kids to start smoking. Now, a few years ago, Congress banned the use of flavorings in cigarettes, with one exception, that's menthol. But they did not ban the use of flavorings in cigars. It's these flavored cigar products, which is probably why our teenagers are showing a great increase in cigar smoking. So in 2011, 6% of teenagers in Philadelphia smoked cigars. Now we're up to 11%. That's compared to 7% amongst of cigarette smoking, which means our teens these days are much more likely to smoke cigars than cigarettes. And this rise in cigar smoking is especially prevalent among African American teens. For them, the rise has been from 5% in 2011 to 12%, so that's a 2.5-fold increase in just 4 years. Now, the candy flavorings are what gets kids started. There's another flavoring, though, I want to talk about today, and that is what keeps smokers smoking, and that's the use of menthol. Menthol is a chemical that gives a wintergreen flavor, and what it does is it numbs up the back of your throat. It's the active ingredient in cough drops. So I got an example here.
You can add that to the collection.
Oh, you got one here too? Yes. And what the menthol does is it numbs up the back of your throat so you don't cough. Now, that's okay if you just have a cold. It's not okay if you're coughing because you have irritation from tobacco smoke. If your throat is numb and you don't cough from that irritation, it means you're more likely to start smoking and you're less likely to quit smoking. As a matter of fact, teens who smoke menthol products, or teens who start smoking with menthol products, are twice as likely to become long-term smokers. Put it another way, menthol makes tobacco more addictive. And the menthol brands are specifically targeted to African Americans. So if you don't believe me, just check out the brands that are advertised in bodegas in African American neighborhoods in the city. The brands you'll see will look like this: Newport and Salem and Cool, the ones that are in the green packs. So a few years ago, the Food and Drug Administration at the federal level convened a group of scientific advisors and asked them what should be done about menthol in tobacco products. And the group said that menthol tends to make tobacco products more addictive, and that prohibiting menthol flavorings would benefit the public health. It would save thousands of lives, they said. We can't expect that we're going to get action, though, from the federal government on menthol. Now, let me just say for a minute, there may be some stores that will testify here today, and they'll say that they don't sell these products to children. What the health department does is it tries to enforce the law which says that they cannot sell these products to children under the age of 18. But we know that many stores sell to children anyway. We've done better than in past years, but at least 1 in 10 stores, when we test them out, are selling to underage youth. And even if 100% of the stores were obeying the law and not selling to children, these products get in the hands of children anyway, because they get their older siblings and their older friends to buy them for them. That's how we get to 11% of our teenagers smoking these cigars. So the flavorings are dangerous, they're harming our kids, and we don't want our kids to be the next generation of smokers. So cities, because the federal government is not acting, the cities around the country are beginning to act on that. The San Francisco and Oakland city councils both voted to prohibit the use of flavorings in cigars and in cigarettes, so including menthol. So those prohibitions will take place in San Francisco and in Oakland. In New York City and Minneapolis, a few years ago, they have already prohibited the candy-flavored cigars, and they're now looking at prohibiting the menthol flavoring. So Philadelphia has an opportunity here to be at the forefront of cities in this country addressing this #1 killer in the city. So that's something we would very much like for this committee and the city council to do. So thanks for the opportunity to testify, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So What role does the health department play, or is it licenses and inspection to go out into neighborhood stores and see what they're doing?
In order to sell tobacco products in the city, you have to have a city permit in addition to a state permit. The health department issues those permits, and then we do send out teams that include one underage youth who then attempts to purchase tobacco products, and if they successfully can purchase that, then we write a ticket and fine them.
So under the definition of tobacco product, those candy wraps, hood wraps, and others are covered.
Yes.
So those are illegal for minors to buy.
That's right. And more important, they're illegal for the stores to sell. That is to say, they can't sell to minors.
Got it. As we look at these flavors, as we look at these colors, psychologically, what is it, for the record, enticing to do? I mean, is it attempting to entice?
You know, we have shown these to third and fourth graders, and we say, "What's this?" And they think it's candy. This is in every way designed to look, feel, smell like candy, and so it makes it easy for children to make the switch from candy that they're consuming, like as all children do, to smoking.
And you said in other cities, is it in the other cities and my issue here, quite frankly, is product placement. Why would you put it near the candy if you did not want that correlation drawn? And what would you I mean, I know you would recommend banning it, but is there any way we can require them to keep them separate and distinct? Is there any precedent by which we keep products separated?
So yeah, they are put on the shelves right next to candy, which draws children's eyes to them. I'm not aware of any city that has put any requirements on where they can be placed in the store. I'm not sure if that can be done in a practical way.
So, I mean, and the first store I went into, Councilman, I thought it was just a bad placement. Mm-hmm. But after and keep in mind, the reason I was going into the stores was to try to find my granddaughter a healthy lunch, which I could not find. Literally, I found plenty of wraps, but I could not find a vegetable. I could not find fruit. I could not find healthy alternatives for her lunch, but I found those wraps. And in each of the stores I went to, the product, tobacco, it might have been behind a case, but it was right near the candy. So I was drawn to both because my granddaughter didn't really care about the vegetables, didn't really care about the fruit. What she wanted was her snack. And I'm looking and pulling from areas where those proximities were there. So I'm concerned, I mean, I have health concerns about all of this, but particularly marketing to our children is reprehensible. And I don't know if it's by design, but after the third store, I started thinking it was. And so I cannot sit here and speak for other people's motivations. But coincidence? I don't know. So, Councilman, do you have a question?
Yeah, just one, and Commissioner, you may not know the answer to this. This may be a law department question. It seems like oftentimes the state figures out all kind of ways to limit our ability to do anything. Would you see, as far as the banning of candy-flavored cigarettes, would there be any state problem in this?
Well, the state would have the legal authority to do it.
I guess I'm thinking, can they, is there some regulation that they have that you know of that would stop us from doing it individually?
Oh, no, the city is not preempted by the state from doing this.
That's the word I was looking for.
The city has the authority to do this, as other cities around the country have done.
Okay. Now, but other cities sometimes don't have the restrictions that seem
correct.
to
But we have looked into this, and,
okay.
and the city does have the authority to make these.
But I would agree with the chairman that certainly they shouldn't be, right next to candy. That's, again, I don't know how legally we do that either, but it's, and as I said before you got here, if I ruled the world, nobody would smoke, but at least we shouldn't have, we shouldn't have these candy flavored things so easy for children to get. That's just wrong.
So I want to
thank
give everybody, thank you, Councilman. I want to give everybody the benefit of doubt, but coincidence, and maybe it's an issue of education and some of the store owners not knowing the problem with this, but I'm beginning to be cynical about that. So thank you for bringing this to council's attention, and particularly about the flavored tobaccos and what they tend to do by way of making smoking more acceptable to our bodies. And that particularly was enlightening to me.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ms. Williams, who do we have next?
Dr. Brian Jensen, Reverend Leroy Miles, and Reverend Jesse Brown.
Thank you, guys. Please come up to the witness table. Good morning.
Good morning.
Gentlemen, pull the mic close to you. State your names and then begin your testimony.
Would you like me to start? So good morning. My name is Dr. Brian Jensen. Good morning, council members. I think I'll start, or sounds good. So the reason I'm here today, I'm a practicing primary care pediatrician in West Philadelphia and a researcher at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and University of Pennsylvania. My research focuses on building systems and tools to help improve care for children and their families, and that includes protecting children from the harms of tobacco. I'm here today in my official capacity as a doctor to offer my expert insight as someone who takes care of children, adolescents, and young adults in our city, so that this group can have the best evidence available to them on this critical health issue. Every day in my clinical practice, I'm faced with the harms of tobacco, and in particular, the toll that flavored tobacco products, in particular menthol products, has on my patient population. I'll be brief because the evidence of harm of menthol products is so readily available. Let me share 3 patient stories. I've changed the names and some specific details to protect patient identities. First, let me tell you about a teenage patient named Jaden. Jaden is 16 years old, doing well in high school, has hopes of going to a vocational program here in Philadelphia after graduation. In our last visit, he disclosed to me that he started smoking this past year, and he wants help quitting. The cigarettes he smokes are menthol, Newport, which were up here before, and he's embarrassed that he's now regularly using. Jaden's developing brain is particularly vulnerable to nicotine, so the addiction happened quickly. He experimented with menthols, they were easy to smoke, and he progressed to being a regular smoker in less than a year. If this could happen to Jaden, it could happen to anyone. This is a typical story here in Philadelphia. Menthol cigarettes are disproportionately used by young smokers, and the menthol in cigarettes makes them more attractive to children, easier to smoke, and more likely to result in addiction. When a child's first cigarette is usually an unpleasant experience, menthol can make it less so, partially by anesthetizing the throat against the harshness of tobacco smoke. Menthol is not just a flavorant, it makes it easier for our youth to start smoking. It keeps people smoking and it inhibits them from quitting. That's why so many experts, so many pediatric experts, so many tobacco experts, so many health experts say menthol makes the poison go down easier. Jaden's story of a teenager getting pulled into tobacco use through menthol is all too common in Philadelphia, and is one of the reasons that pediatricians, like me, are particularly concerned about the dangers that menthol poses to child health. The second story is the story of Amir, an inquisitive and perceptive 8-year-old with asthma. Amir's asthma is poorly controlled. He finds it difficult to breathe when running around playing. He often coughs at night, and he has frequent asthma attacks, which often lead to pediatrician visits and hospitalizations every couple of months. All of his asthma symptoms are worsened by the fact that he's regularly exposed to the secondhand smoke from his mother's cigarette use. I see this direct harm of tobacco in my patients all too often. At a recent visit, Amir's mother told me that she's trying to quit smoking to protect her son's health. When I asked her about her smoking, Amir blurted out his mother smokes Newports. An 8-year-old, while smart, shouldn't know the name of a particular tobacco brand. How does he know that? This gets to the earlier points. The tobacco industry has a well-documented history of developing and marketing menthol-related brands to youth. Even though tobacco advertising on TV and in print has been strictly limited for decades, the industry finds ways to market their products to youth in stores and in the community. Numerous studies show targeting marketing of menthol cigarettes at the point of sale in corner stores throughout the U.S. and in particular here in Philadelphia in our African American communities. So my patient Amir is not only dealing with the harms of tobacco and his asthma, he's being targeted by tobacco companies pushing mentholated brands to pull him in as a future user. Finally, my last story, I want to tell you about 2 adorable 6-month-old twins I just saw named Cameron and Kiara. Both have been recently admitted Both have been recently admitted to the hospital for breathing and lung issues that have been worsened by exposure to their father smoking. Their father, who is the primary caretaker, started smoking Newports as a young adult in his teenage years and now switched to Black & Mild cigars, another menthol product, in the false hope that the switching could help him cut down and quit. Instead, he's been struggling, finding it extremely difficult to quit to not only help his health, but more important to him, help the health of his twins. Parents of young children like Cameron and Kiara are often highly motivated to quit, especially when they see the direct harms of tobacco in their children's lives. Unfortunately, menthol undermines quit attempts, keeping parents addicted and children exposed to smoke. Numerous scientific studies find that adult menthol smokers are less likely than non-menthol smokers to successfully quit smoking, despite increased quit attempts. Smoking menthol cigarettes or other mentholated tobacco products makes it harder to quit. Sadly, these patient experiences of Jaden, Amir, Cameron, and Kiara's father are the typical clinical issues when it comes to tobacco and menthol. Tobacco companies target children, adolescents, and young adults with their advertising of menthol brands. Menthol cigarettes offer no health benefit to smokers. Instead, menthol in cigarettes makes them more attractive to children, more likely to lead to addiction, and harder for users to quit. Children are a vulnerable population, and my job as a pediatrician is to protect them from harm and from dangerous products. There is more than enough evidence of menthol's harm to children and families. Menthol's continued presence in the cigarette marketplace harms children by keeping their parents addicted and preys on teenagers, recruiting them to become a lifetime smoker. These products must be removed from store shelves as soon as possible. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you. If it's okay with my colleague, I'd like the entire panel to testify before we go into questions. Reverend? You got it.
Again, good morning. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I too, Councilman, grew up as a young child, having my mother send me to the store with some change wrapped up in a napkin and purchasing her Kent menthols. So I remember that as a child. I remember ads by Cools in our communities. You've come a long way, baby, targeting specific demographics. So again, I'm Reverend Leroy Miles, as Associate Pastor of Pastoral Care and Counseling at Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church. I'm here under the leadership of our Senior Pastor, Reverend Dr. Alan E. Waller, to speak specifically on this topic. And I'm not here as an expert to flood you with statistics or studies, but I am acutely aware that the CDC has placed a report in 2014 that say although African Americans usually smoke fewer cigarettes and usually start smoking cigarettes at an older age, we are more likely to die from smoking-related diseases than our white counterparts. And I know that to ring true. Again, I'm here as a pastor, but I'm also here as a citizen and as a father and a son to my mother, whom I buried 2 years ago due to COPD, a breathing illness directly related to her issue with smoking. So therefore, I'd like to start off by saying that as a church, we believe in holistic ministry. We have various health ministries to serve the community and families within the community. And this is an issue that's very dear and near to our hearts. And the vitality of these communities are measured by the degree in which we protect our most vulnerable members and citizens from excesses of power. So I'm here today because our children are being made part of a bigger scheme by powerful tobacco companies peddling dangerous products, in particular flavored tobacco products. In the past, and again very true today, menthol is the most dangerous of the tobacco products. Mentholated tobacco products have been specifically targeted to African American youth to make it more likely that our children will become addicted to tobacco. And I know you have had some campaigns, and this concept of replacement smokers rings true. So we know that the companies are looking for new customers, if you will. So again, if we know that they're being marketed in our communities, we know they're being targeted to our children, and the success of this strategy is measured by the disproportionate number of African American deaths due to tobacco-related illnesses. Now, big tobacco companies have added a new weapon to their deadly arsenal. The candy-flavored tobacco products, which are again on display here before us today. These products are specifically designed to attack low-income, Black and brown children. This predatory approach to marketing makes false claims, promises that our children will live lives of pleasure, well-being, and success, reminiscent of some of the ads that I grew up on that, again, were lies and led to death, destruction, and a diminished quality of life. But the reality is that these candy-flavored products only put our children at risk for possibly lifelong addiction, disability, and early death. We have a significant congregation in this city. We are the largest congregation in the city. And I only say that because, again, our footprint is wide. We're primarily housed in the northwest portion of the city, but the tentacles and the relationships that we share spread throughout the entire city of Philadelphia. So we do stand on the name of Philadelphia as it touts itself as the city of brotherly love, and that love should and needs to specifically address our children, the families within this community. But to truly build a city of brotherly love, we must act together to develop policies that protect our community from those who would profit before the people. It's a cruel form of economic development that we cannot afford in our city. Therefore, we hope that at the end of these deliberations, this body will formulate measures that will protect our children from the kind of predatory marketing that we're being subjected to now. Big tobacco companies must understand their blatant targeting of our city's children and teens will not be tolerated. We will use every vehicle available to block their thinly veiled messages. We will permanently invest in ensuring that this effort is our foremost priority. I thank you again for your time and your attention.
Thank you for your testimony and Enon's commitment to holistic approach to spiritual development.
Well, good morning, Councilman Jones and Councilman Greenlee. Good morning.
Good morning.
And I want to also say good morning to all these defenders back here, Philadelphia's children and public health advocates that are in the room. We don't acknowledge you enough.
You can give yourselves a round of applause. We'll come back.
Many of you in this chamber may not know how we got to this hour. In 1989 and 1990, R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company targeted Philadelphia to test market a new brand of cigarette called Uptown. They were capitalizing on the positive branding and history of the Uptown Theater and the complacency of the Philadelphia community to its marketing efforts in the past. But the community did not sit idly by and successfully defeated R.J. Reynolds' marketing plans, preventing thousands of Philadelphia's young people from ever starting to smoke. In 1997, the National Association of African Americans for Positive Imagery started a campaign that was called Say No to Menthol Joe. It was a community crusade that had a special appeal to black youth who showed a preference for methylated brands. In 1998, NAPI, with many other groups, forced the removal of the tobacco billboards from all communities across America. And also in 1998, the Master Settlement Agreement went into effect. One of its provisions was to restrict the sale and promotion of flavored cigarettes. But in order to get this agreement, many of my fellow advocates believed that they could get no agreement if menthol would be included as one of the banned flavorings. So menthol was removed, sacrificing black and Latino youth on the altar of political expediency. And here we are now. We have this power placed in our hands. As the commissioner has already noted, it is not likely to get taken care of on the federal level and not likely to be dealt with on the state level, but we have the power right here in Philadelphia in these council chambers to make that happen now. To ban menthol along with all the other flavorings would be a leadership role that this council could take, which is all the part of this hearing, is it not? To be leaders, not followers. to set the tone so that as we begin to march across the country, this will happen. I actually serve at the current moment as the chairperson of the Ban Menthol campaign, and some of the cities have already been noted where the banning is beginning. I should also note that in places like St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota, they're also working on this issue. We've also dealt with it in Chicago and several cities in California. We want to continue this, but Philadelphia now needs to take the lead. We have led the country before in protecting our young people back during Uptown days, and we can lead again with the banning of menthol. And for me, this is not something that I will sit by and let pass on us. To me, this is the finishing product, is to get menthol in the game as we have chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. It's now time for menthol. Now it's in our hands. So I urge you to love Philadelphia's children with the fervor you claim and lead the march to making Philadelphia, making smoking history in Philadelphia.
Thank you, and thank you all for your testimony. And I couldn't help but think about Mayor Nutter's role within that timeline. And I remember him out of nowhere coming up with the ban of tobacco and smoking in government buildings and restaurants. And at the time, it just seemed so unachievable, I guess would be the word. And he did it. I remember you being a part of that as well. So thank you for what you've done already for our children and the health of our people in Philadelphia.
Yes. May I address you with
Sure.
one of the questions you had earlier for one of our earlier speakers? You talked about the access of candy, the promotion of candy and cigarettes. That's not a happenstance. That's actually been going on literally for 50 years or more. The tobacco industry has always attempted to associate its products with candies in order to desensitize kids to the impact of tobacco. And they've done it in many ways. Before we were talking about earlier, African-American kids don't participate in chewing tobacco that often. Well, in the early 1990s, Wrigley chewing gum, which was owned by Reynolds, by the way, at the time, came out with a shredded bubble gum that looked like and packaged just like what? Chewing tobacco. They wanted the kids to begin to participate. While white kids may have been participating through baseball and other sports figures, in chewing tobacco, African-American kids were not. So they got who the best icon we could get? Michael Jordan, to promote that program. We once again launched a campaign to get Michael Jordan to withdraw his support and his endorsement of the product, which he eventually did. But the point is that the industry has always attempted to desensitize kids to the death that tobacco will bring to their lives or the misery that it will bring. So this is not by accident. And the second part of that you also need to know is that product placement of tobacco is extremely important to the industry. It's not just about the candy, it's about going up to the counter and what do you see, where do you put your money down on, and what do you see over the clerks that are in stores. Industry deliberately created those cigarette things to promote their products and once again, desensitize the kids. And I'll give you one last example of that, and this is particularly targeting the kids. You have never heard of anybody ever complaining, employee at a store ever complaining about cigarettes being stolen. Yet they put them by the door in open forums where you can do what? Pick them up and walk out the door. Because the industry will compensate these companies, as they have, for anything that didn't show up in the inventory. These things have been going on the basis of years, not last week, not last month, but years. If we want to do something about it, and now this council has the power to do it, then now is the time.
Insightful. Had no idea that it was that. See, coincidence, insidious, very different things. When you do product placement design to target kids, to target poor kids in particular, that just gets me. By way of health, so we all know about the issue of lung cancer and associating with smoking. What are some other illnesses and related health problems that come with smoking?
You're the doctor.
Sure. Yeah.
You're the doctor.
So when you think across the adult spectrum, one out of every 3 cancers is caused by smoking. So that just gives you a sense of the position there. Half of all heart disease is caused by smoking in some form. On the pediatric level, when we see these harms directly, asthma is worsened by it, respiratory illnesses are worsened by it, poor pregnancy outcomes are worsened by it. We see all too often in our neonatal intensive care unit premature babies that are born because of the harms of smoking, and then many times don't make it through their experience in the hospital and die from it. It causes roughly 1,100 deaths each year throughout the United States from infants dying from secondhand smoke and then the direct harms of their mothers using tobacco on the infant themselves. So it's a huge issue. That's why Dr. Farley started by saying it's the leading preventable cause of disease and death in the United States. 480,000 people die each year from the harms of tobacco.
So I'm gonna go rapid fire. Eyesight, does it deal with eye pressure at all?
There's a nice Surgeon General report that came out that updated 50 years of tobacco, and so they have a nice figure where pretty much every body system is affected in some form. So it can increase the risk of not necessarily eyesight issues, but long-term glaucoma issues. So certainly, if you go head to toe, you can find an issue that is worsened by tobacco.
Secondhand smoke.
Yes, kills 48,000 to 50,000 people each year and worsens lung disease as well.
But remember, Councilman Jones, that there is more than 400 carcinogens in cigarettes alone.
Say it again.
There's more than
Bring that mic to you.
Oh, sorry.
There is more than 400 carcinogens in cigarettes alone. So every organ system in the body is affected in some way by tobacco. Both the cumulative effect and the longevity of which one uses the thing multiplies the damage over time. And just as important, if they stop smoking, it decreases some of those damages that have taken place.
Last question for bonus points. Marijuana.
Is that a question?
Grab a mic, doctor.
Yeah.
The question is, what are the different impacts tobacco versus marijuana?
We'll start by saying it's hard to really know. We don't have a lot of evidence around marijuana because it's been so hard to study. What we do know is we have more than 50, 60 years of data about the harms of tobacco.
I got the tobacco. I got it. As we move forward in our evolution as a country, we're seeing both medical and then recreational marijuana become a part of, so the hippies of the 60s are the super voters of today, and they're becoming more acceptable to the notion of it. Are there any cautionary tales, warnings that you would give us here today?
I think I would defer right now for that. There's just not enough good evidence
Okay,
around this.
that's
I
fair.
will close by saying an important thing is making sure that the goal here today is to protect children.
And I agree with that because I'm walking, I have, my dog and he's gonna get his own blog, Captain Jack Jones. We're walking and we're going by a middle school and the kids were coming out of the store and they were in the driveway rolling their breakfast, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stopped and I looked at them and they point blank said, well, it's not illegal anymore. I said, well, wait a minute. Yes, it's not criminalized, but it's not encouraged. It's not what you need to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say that to say, as the acceptance goes on, we need to monitor, and so that someday we're not sitting here talking about if we but knew. Reverend
Yes.
Jesse?
One of the campaigns I helped develop was around menthol cigarettes, menthol alcohol, which also has menthol, by the way, and particularly the malt liquors, and marijuana. And we found there's a direct correlation, particularly in the African American community, of users of all three products. And they kind of reinforce themselves in the process. But I think to the larger point that you were making, whether we ever decriminalize it, I'm generally all right with that. The point is that marijuana, like many other things, does impair people, period.
Got it.
Whether it's driving, whether it's walking, whether it's, So as a society, as a community, as a city, I think we need to have some conversation about those people who will be irresponsible, I don't care what you do, and how much of that we're willing to accept on ourselves around this issue.
Excellent point. Excellent.
And that, to me, will be the conversation I think needs to continue.
You seem like you're breaking out in words. Did you want to say something?
Me?
Yes.
Well, I was going to say, maybe related, maybe not necessarily related, but there is a correlation around violence. In some of the bodegas and these smaller corner stores that sell this type of product, we're seeing a uptick, if you will, in violence within our communities, and absolutely want to invite that as part of the conversation.
One of the interesting things about being in these positions is you hear different entities say different things that are related one to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a hearing we did on the geography of violence, geography of crime. Where does it happen? Does it happen in your recreation center or at a corner store? And there is a big debate about those things. And you most recently heard about stores that have been asked to close at a particular time, and there's a reason to that.
Yeah.
And there's a reason to that. Do you have any questions, colleague? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. I appreciate what you've taken the time to tell us today, and it will be useful information going forward. And information without action is nothing.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Williams?
Roy Roman, Alexis Caruth, Vanessa Caracoza, and Barbara Rocky.
Give them time to get their selfies. You know we're counting that candy.
I know we can't all get out at once. Go for it. Okay. It's a jigsaw puzzle getting out of the chair.
Yeah, got it. Thank you all. Good morning. Welcome. Please have a seat at the table. Pull the mic close to you. State your names, and please begin your testimony.
I can start.
Is that my
Would you like to start?
youth commissioner, I'm guessing? Youth commissioner?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now put a face to a name.
Good morning, Chairman Jones and the members of the Joint Committees on Public Safety and Children and Youth. My name is Roy Michael Roman, Chairman of the Philadelphia Youth Commission. It's an honor to have the opportunity to speak on this resolution number 170410, and we are honored to join the discourse surrounding the negative impacts of flavored tobacco on the youth of our great city. The Philadelphia Youth Commission is an entirely youth-led and youth-composed body. Councilman Blondell Reynolds Brown spearheaded and sponsored legislation that prompted the creation of this commission. On behalf of the Philadelphia Youth Commission, we'd just like to first thank Honorable Blondell Reynolds Brown for believing in our vision and bringing our dreams of bridging the gap between adults and youth to fruition. We have made it a priority to be outspoken regarding legislation affecting the youth of Philadelphia, and as flavored tobacco is primarily advertised and marketed towards youth, this issue demands our involvement and is in fact highly salient. First and foremost, the Philadelphia Department of Public Health found that at minimum, 1 in 4 Philadelphia youth reported that they used tobacco. Additionally, and according to that same study, Philadelphia youth have the highest rate of illegal tobacco purchases in the entire state of Pennsylvania.
Could you repeat that?
Youth have the highest rate of illegal tobacco purchases in the entire state of Pennsylvania. As a result of these findings, we feel as though we must speak up and join the chorus denouncing these harmful products. Studies have shown that cigars, e-cigarettes, things around that nature are much more likely to be used by youth than actual cigarettes. This is precisely where the flavored tobacco products become more attractive. Youth will stray towards flavored tobacco products because the tobacco industry has steered these products towards them. Enticing advertisements, deceitful presentation, and overall exploitation of undereducated young people on these topics of tobacco usage are just a few of the plethora of ways that the tobacco industry is targeting the youth of our city. Even more worrying is the fact that companies are deliberately targeting youth of color. The tobacco industry has not only subjected undereducated youth of color to a bombardment of these tobacco advertisements, but they have also taken advantage of youth trends in order to maximize profit. The Philadelphia Youth Commission believes that these tactics are abhorrent and unacceptable. As a result of these findings, we suggest a three-pronged action list that we believe will aid Philadelphia City Council in crafting policies and legislation surrounding the widespread presence of flavored tobacco. We believe we can support council in creating these tasks and completing these tasks. The action list is as follows. First, education. Youth must be educated regarding the issue of flavored tobacco. The tobacco industry is taking advantage of undereducated young people by making these products seem similar to candy, as we see here, fruity substances, and other desirable scents and flavors, so as to increase youth interest. Therefore, we suggest distributing a genuine set of materials, one-pagers, or pamphlets that will help inform youth of the dangers of flavored tobacco. Through efforts such as this hearing and outreach by council offices and ourselves, we can reach the younger generations around the city and educate them on the dangers of flavored tobacco. Education is one of our first and foremost and primary concerns. Second, creation. When youth have free time after school, they are more likely to engage in behaviors that they may otherwise not engage in. Specifically, they may try these flavored tobacco products that are advertised directly towards them in their local corner stores, poppy shops, and bodegas. As a result, we must give youth something positive and productive to do. After youth programs, after school programs, sports, jobs, clubs, all of these things should be expanded upon to give youth more opportunities to engage in their communities in a positive way, rather than being abducted into these kinds of trends based on cigarettes and candy that look entirely the same. Finally, cessation. We as a city must address the flavored tobacco epidemic for what it is and stop the tobacco industry from taking advantage of youth through policies or legislative action that puts a stop to these unfair practices. Ultimately, it is our primary purpose to provide the youth perspective in all legislative matters in our city. We believe that providing this youth perspective is crucial to ensure equity amongst all of our citizens in all generations. Thank you very much for listening to this testimony, and after everyone else speaks, I would be more than willing and honored to answer any questions regarding the Youth Commission or anything regarding youth involvement in tobacco usage in general. Thank you.
I want to thank the Kenny administration for supporting the Youth Commission and literally advocating to make sure you got on here to testify today. They really pushed our buttons to say, if it's impacting youth, they should have a voice in it, and I totally agree.
Thank you,
All right?
Councilman.
So thank you for your testimony. We will hold questions, Councilman, and as other people testify. Please state your name and begin your testimony.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Vanessa Caracosa. I am here to testify on a business perspective. I am a Latina and a small business advisor at the Welcoming Center. So like I said, I am a Latina and a small business advisor at the Welcoming Center for New Pennsylvanians. We are a private, nonprofit organization that supports neighborhood businesses through business services. I work on a project called the Tobacco Retail Project. This is a project that helps corner stores in low-income areas transition from selling tobacco products to healthier items. We do this through business planning, market research, technical assistance, and connecting to resources. Furthermore, myself, colleagues, and interns from local universities have spent hours surveying neighborhoods near some of these stores. And out of 120 surveys we conducted, 90% of customers expressed over and over that, 1, they want more fruits, vegetables, and prepared food options, and 2, that they support corner stores who go tobacco-free. I've also spoken to 400 corner store owners, also known as bodegas, in Philadelphia, and not one owner is a smoker. Their concern for their health and desire to set a good example to their family, and especially their children, has been a common reason for their choice not to smoke. Moreover, they agree that the profit margin for tobacco sales is low and simply not worth it. For example, Julio Soto is the owner for El Soto Deli Grocery, a corner store in South Philly. He is a proud tobacco-free store since June of 2016. He shared this in Spanish. As a business in the neighborhood, we have a great responsibility to its members, and it's not worth a 30-cent profit that tobacco brings us. Companies like tobacco only care about themselves. So I am here today to share that I've seen firsthand corner stores be profitable without the sale of these harmful products. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Alexis Caruth, and I am a former youth surveyor for Health Promotion Council. In my position as a youth surveyor, I travel throughout the city of Philadelphia with an adult surveyor, visiting different realtors to conduct undercover buys of tobacco products. If asked to show...
Wait a minute, you're our undercover young person?
I mean, technically, like, they're not supposed to, yeah, so. Yeah, so if asked to show my ID, I had to do so, and if asked my age, I had to be truthful about that as well. My concern is about the negative impact that menthol and flavored tobacco products have on youth. Since it has been documented that 90% of smokers start at the age of 18, I feel as though if the merchants that sell these tobacco products, especially the flavored ones that are more attractive to youth, would not sell them, then the number of teen smokers would decrease. The tobacco industry seems to advertise around what will draw the minors into buying the products, and the merchants let them put these displays where they want to, even encouraging them to put the flavored products in with the candy and other things that the minors purchase when they come into the stores. There will be some who say that flavored and menthol tobacco is not sold to children and that laws to protect our children from these products are not necessary. However, the grocery bags that you from ShopRite, Acme, over a course of just 2 months, we have like 1 or 2 grocery bags full of just tobacco products like this and this, and vanilla Dutches, Irish cream, backwoods, different things that are flavored and, that is appealing. It smells good, it smells fruity. So, of course, it would appeal our children because if you have stuff that says cool mint, it's mint. You can eat mint. Some children that are too young to know what it is, they'll think that it's candy or a mint. Another thing I wanted to bring to you guys' attention that I didn't hear anyone say is that on these wrappers, they're starting to say slow burn, cough resistant. So they're starting to actually put out there that if you smoke this, you'll be less likely to cough than a cigarette, or slow burn. It's going to burn slower than a cigarette. So if it's cheaper and it's not going to burn as faster than a cigarette, of course they're going to buy that versus a cigarette. Yeah, thank you.
Somehow I feel like we should have changed your face and voice so that so that they don't know who you are. Can we do that over there technically? Can we change her voice? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Barbara Rocky. I'm the director of the Philadelphia Area Project on Occupational Safety and Health, better known as Philipposh, and appreciate, again, an opportunity to be here today to offer testimony for our organization. Philadelphia, also just to add that Philipposh does represent 30 different unions. So we're a labor-based organization, but more recently, over the last several years, due to federal funding we got, we've been doing a youth program. It's called Teens Lead at Work, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that and the topic that we're discussing today. Philadelphia, where I live, where most of us live, is a city of neighborhoods, like my own neighborhood of Francisville. And our neighborhoods continue to represent the real fabric of our city in every way, to provide the environment where our youth learn the skills they need to survive, the importance of education, to learn the skills they need to get a job, and to basically have peer leadership through the elders in the neighborhood. Over the past 10 years, Philip Bosch has been very active in the Philadelphia neighborhoods as a result of the increase in residential construction, and we've been strongly advocating on the streets the promotion of bringing awareness to unsafe and unhealthy conditions. And I know that's not on point to this discussion, but it is, because what we found is our neighborhoods and our residents are very concerned. So when unsafe scaffolding has been erected and it collapses and crushes two parked cars, those could have just easily been two children walking to the corner store to get their snack for the day. Luckily, it wasn't true. I have pictures of mothers holding their 4-year-old or 5-year-old going into the corner store on my block, where they were grinding stone across the street, creating clouds of silica dust, which of course causes cancer, and mothers were walking their children through these clouds of silica dust to get into the corner store. So we've been very proactive in the neighborhoods, not only trying to stop these abuses, but building awareness in the neighborhood about issues that involve residents' health and safety, and how residents can become more proactive to stop that kind of behavior. So, many people have testified this morning about remembering going to the corner store. We still go to the corner stores. Our neighborhoods are still loaded with them. On my street, there's a corner store right at the end of the block, and the youth go there all the time. They go to run errands for their parents. They go to before school to buy snacks, they go after school to buy snacks, and they also just hang out. If you go to the corner of 20th and Parish on any afternoon, you'll find at least 10 youth just hanging out in front of the corner store. It's actually a gathering place as well, and so they're constantly exposed to, and not just buying and interacting, but they're just part of the corner store sort of fabric of the neighborhood. Which is why I want to address directly the issue of the impact of flavored tobacco and menthol products. We cannot pretend to be concerned as a city about the safety and the health of our youth if we don't address this issue, just flat out. It would be the height of hypocrisy to not do so. It's the elephant in the room. Because, as has been testified earlier, this has been going on for a very long time, although new techniques are constantly being created. We know that, I'm not going to repeat the statistics, others have eloquently given it, but we know that people who use menthol products are twice as likely to continue to stay addicted, probably for life. We know that the marketing targets neighborhoods of color, targets low-income neighborhoods. Unacceptable. It's unacceptable in any form, in any way, and certainly when the youths of our neighborhoods are also targeted, it's a double crisis, a double insult. Our youth program, as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, the Washington administration just canceled the funding for our youth program. We're going to continue it because we're committed, regardless of that. But in our youth program, it's been for the last 4 years, and we've trained about 600 youth throughout the city on their rights as young workers, and with a particular focus on workplace violence, because in their jobs they're more prone to that. So last week, after I became aware of this hearing, I met with our 4 youth trainers. 3 are black, 1 is brown. The 4 we have, they're all teenagers. They are peer trainers, so we have youth training other youth, and they've become real experts on the different topics we train on. And so I raised this issue with them. Now, none of the 4 smoke. None of them are smokers, but they have friends that are. And I asked them how they felt about this new initiative, about the flavored cigars, et cetera. And their comment to me was, Barbara, isn't that violence? It may not be workplace violence, but isn't that violence against us? Isn't that sort of just another aspect of what we've been training about? That was their reaction to this discussion, that a campaign is underway that they weren't even aware of, but now are, to violate them, to bring violence against them. And I think they identified it as just for what it is. So we believe the best solution moving forward is to engage our youth in this discussion. We intend to continue to do that. And for City Council to take this opportunity and the momentum to move forward, to take actions necessary to get this situation controlled. However, I will say, if not, then we will do what we've always done as an organization, and we'll work with many of the people here. We'll hit the street ourselves, and we'll make it an issue, and we won't let it go. And I think people that know Philipasha's history knows we will do that. And our board is strongly behind my testimony in that regard. Thank you very much.
I love government that is trickle up as opposed to trickle down, so that's fine with me. I want to recognize my colleague and friend, Councilman Tollenberger, has joined us as well. Thank you. And thank you for your participation. Do we have one more to testify?
No, I think that's it.
No?
No.
We're good? All right, so we can begin questions. So, first question I would have is, so are you guys millennial or something different? Are you millennial?
So there's actually 2 bodies, the Philadelphia Youth Commission, that are appointed by the 17 council people, and then 4
I got that.
are appointed by the mayor. There's also a
Age-wise-
millennial advisory.
No, I don't know. What would you classify yourselves as? Millennials?
Not necessarily.
Well, tell me, yeah, that's what I'm asking.
So the age range from 13 to 23, we represent the younger generation.
So what are they called? You haven't gotten a name yet?
Yes,
Young
we
folks.
have made it
Younger
that far
than
yet.
millennial.
Yes, sir.
So we're ancient. And the reason
For
I,
yourself, I may not be ancient.
all right. I went to public school, I can count. So
So did I.
So my question to you is, what is trending in your world? And as you see the decriminalization of marijuana, the possible legalization, both medically and recreationally, and these flavored cigarettes, so I know, because the streets, as you say, be talking and I'll be listening. And what is your flavor of choice? I mean, do you see your peers smoking marijuana more or less? Do you see your peers smoking cigarettes more or less? Which way is it trending?
So, based on my own personal opinion,
You don't have to confess to anything, but
Right.
people you know.
Right. Based on my own personal experiences, I think there are a plethora of issues going both ways, and I also think that there are 2 very different roads that we're crossing. If we're addressing the issue of tobacco usage itself is one thing, and addressing the issue of utilizing marijuana and using these kinds of blunt wraps to smoke that marijuana, I think those are 2 completely different things. Obviously, the purchase of these products are still going to continue, whether it being to smoke these cigarillos or to use them to smoke other substances. I think that's common. I also think it's 2 very different issues in the sense that these products are being advertised to younger children, ages 10 to 13, who, based on my own personal experience, are more likely to try these first rather than to use these to roll which is smoke other substances.
Okay.
Whereas once the trends start to come in and the social media and other things along those lines starts to become more prevalent, that's when other things start to come in and kind of add into that space. So I think they are certainly on different paths, but at some point they do converge.
Intersect, wow.
Yes.
So, I mean, and the reason I'm leading you to this is tobacco is the least of the products I worry about in that they are lacing these things. Their colleagues, just to give you a glimpse into some of the things I see in my neighborhood, K2, which is synthetic marijuana, which is, it defies a biological description because they keep changing what the chemicals are, is worse than any of these because it's a hallucinogen, and the district attorney's office has dedicated a considerable amount of manpower to dealing with it, and they wrap that stuff with this. Lacing is another thing, and maybe you can speak to what that is for my forever young colleagues. Does anybody, you have knowledge of that?
Regarding the K2, it does eat your brain away. If you look it up in research, if you smoke something that is laced with K2, you may not die right then and there because everybody's body is different, but you can have a reaction to it to where you will not come back, and it does eat away your brain if you don't, pass out from that one time.
And that's the vehicle by which they deliver it to their bodies. This is potpourri that they take out, crush, and put chemicals on.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why it's so difficult for the district attorney to pursue it is because they change, we define what the chemical compounds that they're putting in it, we make it illegal, and then they change it by one household product, and then it's something different. This is a real problem that I see, and I was trying to figure out, why? So, not that you have to speak for your whole generation, but that's really discerning to me. And I'll give you another example of what I'm concerned about by these product placements. Right next to the candy, right next to the flavored tobacco are these pipes and things that they use as well. I mean, other than drug use, is there a legitimate use for these things? To my knowledge, I don't know.
Are you talking about the pipes for hookah, or are you talking about the?
No, not hookah. I know what a hookah pipe is, but even those smaller ones that, to me, seem like crack pipes.
It's similar, like you do the same exact thing, it's the same concept, but it wouldn't be for like crack, it would be for like marijuana.
See, that's why I need an expert, my undercover expert, because I wouldn't know.
My generation, you see a lot, so in this world today, you have to be knowledgeable because a lot is dangerous,
So
because even candy, they put things in candy now that you have to watch out. Like if someone gives you something, you have to make sure that it's legit because now they're starting to put things in candy.
Councilman Greenlee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question's really for Ms. Caracosa. Did I mess that up too bad? Okay, all right. First of all, you said that 400, did I hear you right, that 400 of the store owners said they don't smoke personally? Is that what you said?
That's correct.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
As far as what we're particularly focused on today, these candy-flavored cigarettes, I know you said you talked to business owners about not selling cigarettes generally. Has this issue ever come up in discussion with them, particularly the gearing towards kids, these kind of things?
When we...
A little more closer microphone, please.
So
I'm even older than Councilman Jones, so...
So when we get into the discussion of like why they would be interested in becoming a tobacco-free store, and like we start getting into the moral reasons, a lot of them have shared with me that they don't like seeing pregnant moms buy cigarettes, that they don't like seeing outside their store an adult, going into a store, buying cigarettes, buying these products and giving them to children. And that's something that it's very hard for them because it's conflict, right? So
yes, they can ask for an ID in the store, but outside of the store, like, what can they do? So those two are the main issues I hear, the main themes.
Okay, I guess what I'm getting at, I mean, it's great that some have said they wouldn't sell tobacco products, I get that. But I would think that's only going to be so many, but I would like to think there might be some more who would voluntarily not sell these things, or at least not promote them the way we're talking about today. Has that been specifically discussed? I mean, it may not have been, I'm just trying to think, because that's really what our focus here, at least today, is, and I'm just wondering what, has that particular issue been talked about,
To
Like,
voluntarily-
okay, you're selling cigarettes, fine, rather you not, but how about these things?
Yeah, it's all tobacco-related products, so including these candy-looking tobacco products. So they have mentioned all of that, and currently 4 stores in Philadelphia that have worked with me to become tobacco-free through this project.
You say 4 stores? Is that what you
Yeah.
said? Mhm.
So these stores have incorporated more fruits and vegetables to their stores, and have, incorporated catering and just other sources of income that replaces the tobacco products. And they say all these products also bring violence to their stores, customer and employee conflict. So in general, they are happier being tobacco-free.
Okay. All right, okay. Thank you,
Wow.
Mr. Chairman.
Enlightening. Councilman Tollenberger?
Yes.
Vanessa, if I could ask the following. As I see here, as I stand, and it's a great distance, and my eyes are not as good as they used to be, but I don't consider myself ancient. I couldn't tell the difference, because I'm told there's candy mixed in with those. I couldn't
Yes.
tell the difference. They all look like candy to me from this distance now, I can't see. And if you could, because I was distracted with other things that happened, but your testimony is very important. You had said that this causes conflict, and how so, in the stores?
Yeah, so I had a store owner share a story with me about his employee, a woman working, the front desk, and customer bought, in particular, a pack of cigarettes.
Regular cigarettes, just regular.
Right. This time around, it was regular cigarettes. When he opened the pack, one of them was broken. So he just got, he wanted a return. Obviously, the employee was like, I'm sorry, like, that's how it came. And, like, he basically threw the cigarette box back at her and started yelling. They had to call the cops. And it was just a situation where she didn't feel safe. And usually that's why...
He wanted a new pack or a refund or something?
Yeah, wanted another pack. So just, this could come broken in some way, and someone could, due to their addiction and not having maybe more money to buy another pack, is going to fight back. And it's usually, I've seen corner store owners who even have, if it's going to be a female employee in the front, they have 2, just so, they feel safe. So that's another issue as well.
I mean, the conflict that you articulated, I get that, and then there should be no conflict in stores. On the other hand, I mean, if the person opened the cigarette package and one was broken, I would say that the store owner ought to replace it and eventually send it down the line to wherever it's supposed to go, and that should end the conflict. On the other hand, I can't make that decision. There should be really no conflict, but I guess people get pretty emotional. I will also have to say that look, I'm not a smoker. I'm not in favor of smoking, but it is a legal product. I will say that. That being said, however, the cigarette packages are not cheap. And if I bought something for, I don't know, what is the price for a cigarette pack? $5, $4, $6?
Like 10.
$10. $10 that a man just gave over a woman, whoever, who does smoke, gave over $11. Let's go with the higher price, $11. And one of the cigarettes is broken. Well, I think they're entitled to complain to that. They're buying a legal product and so on. Not that any violence should be used. They're not entitled to that, but they're entitled to raise, well, I guess some people would say hell if they wanted to, because they're upset. I mean, so I get that. What I'm concerned about is, it's obvious, I think they are set for the youth market. And I am very, very opposed to that, very opposed. And if some legislation arises from this body to stop that, I'm going to tell you right now, I will support it, because it's obvious that this is set for the youth. How are most, and I think you testified this, but if you could just repeat it simply, so I don't want to take a lot of time. How do they buy most of these? I mean, they're geared for the youth, so if a 17-year-old comes in the store, they shouldn't be, there's a fine for that, there's a fine for that.
Yes, there's a fine.
And you think the store owner sells it to them anyway? You think?
So, yeah.
So she can't see a head nod or report it. If you're saying yes?
Absolutely. Not even 17, but I'm 20 now. When I'm in a store, I see someone who looks like 13 or 12, and they go up and they'll ask for like a Dutch or a cigarillo, and they'll just give it to them. Not even ask for ID.
Shouldn't they have an ID? Do they ask you for ID when you were?
Honestly, well,
Yes, honestly.
sometimes yes, and sometimes no. Like they would ask me, how old are you sometimes,
And just take you on your word and say, you could say anything.
yeah, but I had to be truthful. Also, some would
Okay.
ask me for my ID, and I would give it to them, and they would still sell when I would give my ID. And
Even
it
though the
clearly-
ID said you were clearly.
And it clearly says, like in red, it'll say under 18 until my birthday, then it'll say under 21 in yellow, and so it clearly says like when I turn 18.
Let me ask you this, and this is for all four. How many stores do you think are out there that actually sell to minors regardless, they don't care? And how many do you think actually adhere to the law of 18?
Percentages.
I
mean,
want to address just a sort of, I think, a clarification without knowing the answer, but if you go to a Rite Aid, there's a very different experience. If you go to a Walgreens or whatever, I mean,
Right.
they are adamant about seeing ID. The corner store sort of role in neighborhoods is so different. So parents all the time do send their kids to the corner store to pick up stuff for them. And the owners, I mean, it's just a whole different
Well, because
dynamic.
they
So I
don't-
know and there are one close. There are 3 corner stores in my neighborhood. I go to all of them, and I see young people. I've never seen anybody carded or ask for ID. So that's
Right.
not a scientific study. Whereas in Rite Aid, you have to show 5 pieces of ID. It's a very different kind of dynamic.
Not only that, but in Rite Aid and Wawa, they have to scan your ID. You have to give it to them, and they have to put it through a scanner, and it'll tell them that you're either of age or you're underage. But in
Right.
a Chinese store or a corner store, they don't have a scanner, but they'll have warning signs all over, right in front of your face. But they'll still give it to you.
So for the record, it doesn't matter ethnic to me, doesn't matter what, rich, poor, legal is legal, illegal is illegal, improper is improper, regardless of race, creed, or color.
I would agree. The law is the law.
The law is the law.
But I can see where having come from a small deli, you have, my parents owned it, it was our own house, we lived on top of it. Things weren't quite, and we knew the neighborhood well, and I truly believe my parents always adhered to the law, but I could see if they knew Mary Smith was sending her little kid down here because it was a regular order and she was getting cigarettes anyway, and she was a heavy smoker, they may have, done the cigarettes, because Mary Smith knows you, and she's going to call you on your phone and say, hello, those cigarettes are for me, even though it's a violation of the law, although that law I don't think existed in 1960, in 1962, when my parents had that delicatessen. But I can see where the pressure's on, because they know each other. Everybody knows each other in the neighborhoods much better than you do at a Rite Aid or wherever. But that doesn't, in my eyes, today exempt or excuse the small owner. They still have to adhere to the law, regardless if they know Mary Smith or not. Do you think there's adults out there that purchase cigarettes and then resell them to kids? And think that's sort of funny or not funny? Maybe they're making a couple dollars, or
Yeah,
it exists.
Lucy's.
It does exist?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Could you explain Lucy to my learned colleague?
Oh, yes.
Well, I don't know about how learned I am, but
That's often in stores as well. Like they'll sell loose cigarettes out of the.
is that allowed?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it not allowed? I don't think it's allowed. You can't sell one cigarette.
I'm sorry, you asked me if it was allowed?
Yeah, they just do it.
That's illegal.
But is it common?
Yeah, that's.
Really?
Yeah, you're not, yeah, but people also do that on the street too, like they'll stand on the corner and they'll,
So in same stores where this happens, it is often a policy practice that you can get a Lucy. And what a Lucy is I can't afford that $10, but I can afford maybe $1 for that cigarette. And the addiction to the tobacco is that much that you paid $1.
but people are starting to join the two together to where now you can get 5 of these for 4 quarters.
Well, what you just picked up, what is that exactly?
This is
Yeah.
actually, it's a cigarillo, it's 5 of them, and
It's a
it's,
cigarette?
yeah, well, it's a cigarillo, it's like a blunt.
Okay, because it has tobacco in it, so it's exempt from some of the cigarette laws.
And it's fruit punch flavored, that
Read some
one
of
in
them.
his hand is, oh, you, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. This way I can get to see them quicker, but, okay.
And what's correct, Councilman, what's interesting is if you look at the package colors, when you put it up in that arrangement there, it's hard to distinguish the Reese cup, which is my personal favorite, from, what's the name of that one?
They're the same colors.
Right, look at that.
They're the same colors.
M&M's,
Yeah.
and what's the flavored tobacco you have in your hand there? The
This one is watermelon.
Right, and what's the other one?
And this one is honey.
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 I have 5 grandchildren, and with the exception of the one who's too young, I think the others would all kind of have an interest in this because of the color and thinking they're cigarettes. I mean,
Oh,
candy.
absolutely, absolutely.
This is
I got it.
absurd, actually.
And Councilman Taubenberger, if I may add, I think that's the primary reason why the education of our youth is so crucial. When we're looking at it from a top-down governmental perspective, we automatically assume that, well, why is there not some way that we can stop corner stores from selling these, or why is there not some way that we can restrict youth from purchasing these in illicit manners, and because it's illegal. But on the other hand, the more important thing is educating our youth and informing them that this is, in fact, not a candy. This is not something that is sugar, it's not fattening, it's not something that you would receive for Valentine's Day or Halloween. It's something that you would actually become medically addicted to, and something that would actually cause medical problems for the remainder of your life. And I think that's the key issue here, because when youth don't know what is going on, just echoing Councilman Jones's point, that's not an adult issue at that point when they're not informed about what they're purchasing. That is a youth issue, and that is an undereducated decision, and that is primarily one of the largest issues that we feel the youth are facing at this point in time.
Can I just piggyback off of that, and I'm done, unless you have a question for me?
We may. You're very informative here. I'm
Oh,
glad you
thank
came.
you.
Thank you for taking time out,
Yeah,
seriously.
sure. Like, for an example, with the, for like a 5-year-old or 8-year-old, if they go into the store and see a chocolate Dutch displayed, they first of all, they don't know what a Dutch is, so they're not going to pay attention to the Dutch part. They're going to pay attention to the chocolate part. Why is the Dutch named after chocolate? You know what I mean? So that's my main thing, is like, not only do they look like candy and the colors, they're similar, they're named after candy, they're named after food,
Oh,
they're
I can
named
see
after fruit.
very clearly in what you have here. You have hi-fi cigarillos, fruit punch, and the fruit punch in size is at least the size of the cigarillos, or not even larger. I mean, in the hi-fi, that kind of sounds interesting.
And
I mean, this
it
does look like it's
encourages you
packaged for
on the
kids.
package. It tells you something about a good time, or it says good times or something like that. So not only that, but it encourages you to smoke it as well.
And I would like noted for the record here, I always like to know where things are made. think, Mr. Chairman, half of these are made in the Dominican Republic, half of them are made in the United States. It's kind of interesting. I didn't think any of them were made in, I thought they were all made in the United States. Not that that's an issue, but it is an issue to a degree. People ought to know where things are made, but the fact is, these are clearly marked for, you know, you have the Surgeon General report, very small, but the fruit punch is very large. And the warnings are very small, and the fruit punch is very large. There's no question in my mind that these are not made for kids.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Councilman, for your comments. Seeing no other questions for this panel, thank you all for your testimony, and we appreciate the information that you've given us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Ms. Williams?
Kenyatta Graham, Sandra Harmon, and William Mackey.
Thank you guys for your patience. Please come to the witness table, have a seat. Please state your, bring a mic to you, and please state your name and begin your testimony.
Go ahead. My name is Sandra Marina Harmon. I'm here on behalf of myself and would like to thank my employer, the Nicetown CDC, who also supports this cause.
Thank you. I'm familiar with my friends up in Nicetown. I was trying very hard to get it to be in my district. That wasn't going to happen.
We're great. Glad to be here.
Good. Oh, you want me to start? All right. Good morning. My name is Kenyatta Graham, and I am a proud resident of Strawberry Mansion, which is a neighborhood in North Philadelphia, as well as the president of the Strawberry Mansion CDC. As a concerned resident and community leader, it is very important for me to lend my voice to an issue that is causing generational harm to our fellow citizens, and that is the predatory marketing and targeted use of menthol and flavored tobacco products on low-wealth African-American communities, especially our youth. And we've seen that here, and we've heard information to that point today. I commend the Joint Committee for inviting the public to express our concerns about this growing tobacco issue, and I am hopeful that the information shared here with you today about menthol and flavored tobacco and targeted marketing toward youth in neighborhoods like Strawberry Mansion will intensify the tobacco discussion and prompt much-needed regulations and monitoring of the tobacco industry's operations here in Philadelphia. Upon reviewing Philadelphia's statistics on tobacco use and the correlations between the data and the characteristics of neighborhoods like Strawberry Mansion, the strategies to promote tobacco use is clearly evident. In other words, the data clearly align with the industry's current target and marketing strategies. And here's a few examples. 32% of low-income residents in Philadelphia are smokers. Well, Strawberry Mansion is one of the largest low-wealth neighborhoods in Philadelphia. So it's pretty clear that we probably house a number of those designated smokers. 26% of African Americans smoke in Philadelphia. Well, Strawberry Mansion is one of Philadelphia's less diverse communities in that 98% of our residents are African American. So it is likely that a number of those smokers reside in Strawberry Mansion. Additionally, according to recent studies, nationally, billboards in black neighborhoods are more likely to show menthol brands than in white neighborhoods. Well, if you take a quick tour of Strawberry Mansion, you will see posters, advertisements, magazines with advertisements that clearly have advertised menthol brands. If not all of them, they're all menthol brand products, tobacco products. Because of Strawberry Mansion's characteristics of low wealth, predominantly African American residents, and high rates of chronic illnesses like diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, the Philadelphia Department of Public Health and the Strawberry Mansion CDC decided to embark on a Get Healthy Philly Youth Tobacco Initiative. For this initiative, 10 Strawberry Mansion youth ages 15 to 18 were employed for 6 weeks to conduct a tobacco survey to residents of Strawberry Mansion ages 14 to 24. Why this demographic? It is reported that 90% of smokers start smoking as teens. Throughout their 6 weeks, the youth were educated about tobacco and its effects. They received data collection training, and they developed a tobacco survey. Ultimately, they went out to survey residents of Strawberry Mansion. They surveyed over 400 Strawberry Mansion residents about their attitudes and knowledge of tobacco use. Their results were eye-opening, especially to our young people. Of those surveyed, 97% had been exposed to any type of tobacco promotion. 46% agreed that menthol products were marketed more toward African Americans, and 33% did not know the effects of menthol on repeated tobacco use and quitting. So these figures may be good for tobacco ad execs because their message is getting out there, but it's very detrimental for the public health of our community. Our youth found that 82% of the respondents were in favor of more laws to reduce the harms of tobacco. After analyzing their data, our youth suggested the following: passing legislation, tobacco-free school zones, more enforcement and penalties for retailers who sell tobacco products to youth, and increased education, public awareness, and counter tobacco campaigns. The Youth Tobacco Initiative survey had a significant impact on the lives of our youth, and I'd like to thank the Department of Public Health for engaging our community and helping us meet a couple of our needs for our community through this initiative. I encourage you to experience their presentation to learn firsthand their revelations about the tobacco industry and the industry's inequitable practices. Tobacco use and strategic marketing to communities like Strawberry Mansion further burden our community and increases the work of combating health, social, and emotional threats that harbor in many of our households. Stricter regulations or a total ban on tobacco advertisement and promotion toward our youth will protect youth in Strawberry Mansion from initiating their addiction to menthol and these flavored products. Likewise, dedicating more resources to intensify tobacco prevention campaigns will lower the risk of non-smokers and encourage existing smokers to explore cessation treatment. Given these issues, Strawberry Mansion is a resilient community. With the help of smart legislation, proper education, and adequate resources, we will strengthen our resistance to tobacco use and secure the health of our future generations. Thank you for your attention.
Wow, thank you. We'll hold our questions until both of you testify.
All right. So my position here is probably different than what we've heard this morning. I'm a former smoker. I smoked for 40 years. And I want to start by quoting Angela Davis, who is a huge role model for me. Her quote says, "Until the color of your skin is the target, you will never understand." I wish to state one huge factor to consider in this battle to end the reign of terror of big tobacco. They are targeting our youth in the African American and Latino communities. Many years ago, I was one of those children. As a child, both of my parents smoked. They smoked the harsh, unfiltered brands that many in my generation found too hard or too unpleasant or too unattractive to smoke. I remember my father smoking Chesterfield Kings. Now, I know that dates me, but this is important. While I tried over and over to look grown up and hip, to coin a phrase apropos of the time, I just couldn't do it. I could not take that harsh cigarette. I was about 12 or 13 at that time. My curiosity was once again ignited later in my teen years as I was introduced to a green box symbolic of a new poison that many of my peers were getting their hands on. The poisonous treat inside was a filtered, minty cigarette. Lo and behold, a menthol cigarette. The product targeted just for my people, the young ones, a new generation of smokers, something I could inhale and not choke. I was 16 years old by this time, and I was hooked, as were many of my peers who also wanted to look grown up and sophisticated, like the well-dressed lady on that commercial. You remember her, the one who had come a long way. Heard that mentioned already today. I equated women's rights and civil rights with those cigarettes. I was with it. Many here today can relate. So let's fast forward 40 years. Until February 2016, I had smoked nearly every day. Through high school, we were given 15-minute smoke breaks that they would actually ring a bell, and it was almost like a cigarette bell. And those students, along with myself who smoked, were allowed to go outside and smoke while we socialized. It's insane. And I guess the whole process is that we were able to get our nicotine levels up, and then we'd be able to sit in a classroom and participate in that process. I was also a world-class sprinter. I anchored many 440 relay races to a victory. Unfortunately, the race that I lost was the one that I had a cigarette in my hand. I had enough of that habit eventually, but I couldn't quit. The smelly environment, cigarette burns in the house and in my clothing, shortness of breath, coughing, and skin discoloration caused by the cigarettes was something that I dealt with. I smoked while I was pregnant. I couldn't kick the habit, even with help. I learned later that it wasn't a habit at all that I was dealing with. I was addicted. Addicted because of a cruel tactic used by big tobacco, chemicals that were added without my knowledge and my permission to hook me, enslave me, and yes, I was targeted because I was a young black girl with a desire to look cool and grown up. 32 cents was the damage the first time I bought my very first pack. I'd been buying them without question for years for my folks before I even started, and no adult ever got in my path to say, "What are you doing? You can't do that." I tried over and over again to quit, and that is a central theme here. I tried over and over again to quit. I'd stop, then I'd start again. It ruined relationships. It led to numerous deaths of people that I knew and loved, to include my parents, who had also modeled that deadly behavior throughout my entire youth. I'm thankful for the health department and for the truth of giving my family accurate information and those proper tools for me to overcome my addiction and to break the cycle of stealing cigarettes, or the life-stealing cigarettes. Big tobacco industry, I know 3 people you won't steal, and those are my girls. They're my girls, not yours. Thank you, Shonda, that's my eldest daughter, for never buying me one cigarette. She told me as a child she'd as soon get a gun for me and allow me to kill myself, rather than to go to the store and buy a pack of cigarettes for me. My youngest daughter, Aziza, who's here today, and I thank her for never giving up. Every day, she would tap me on the shoulder and she would ask, "Is today your quit day?" Thank you for that. Lastly, I'd like to thank my precious granddaughter, who her 6th birthday actually did become my quit day. And on February 2018, I'm going to celebrate 2 years of being free of that evil beast. And again, to Big Tobacco, I took my life back. And I'm grateful. And I thank you all for your support and for being here for me today. Thank you.
So my first question, and thank you for that testimony and sharing, was who did you run for?
I started running for the Willingboro Track Club when I was
Willingboro.
8 years old, under the tutelage of Bill and Evelyn Lewis, Carl's parents.
So you were our nemesis. I coached for Mallory. And,
That's right, that's right. Melita Johnson and that crew, we weren't scared of y'all.
We together today, but you guys were formidable. Thank you for that. And some of the Strawberry Mansion statistics, it's ironic. I was not going to name the neighborhood that I drove through with my granddaughter, Aziza, to get to school, and it was Strawberry Mansion.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult to find, you know, there's an old, well, it's not so old, it's a saying that I have. In a neighborhood, you can tell when it's a good neighborhood when you ask the question and get the right answer for what, when you walk out the door, will you run into first? A book, a vegetable, a gun, or a cigarette? And unfortunately, in many neighborhoods, it is the cigarette and gun before you get the book and the vegetable. So we have to change that paradigm. Listen, grown folks are grown folks.
Yeah.
Grown folks make grown folk decisions. But when you bring the kids into the battle and unwittingly put them at, or them being unwitting about being put in harm, that's not acceptable. So thank you. Do you have any questions? Councilman Tullenberger?
Well, first I want to thank both of you for coming, and congratulations for quitting
Thank you.
smoking.
Thank you.
That's important. The question I have really is for Ms. Graham.
Okay.
Are there any stores, as were mentioned before, I think by Ms. Karzova from the Welcoming Center, that in Strawberry Mansion have stopped selling cigarettes in place of other things? Are there any stores that exist that way?
Not that I know of. The ones that were selling tobacco products, they are still currently selling tobacco products.
Not one?
Not one.
Everybody's
No
still-
one said, no, I'm not going to sell, it's detrimental, it's hurting the public health of the community, no.
Okay. And do you think most of the stores that sell cigarettes to youth, as was mentioned earlier, but tell me if you disagree, come from the smaller stores, the
Yes, yes, the corner stores, yes.
Yep.
corner stores? Okay. And in those corner stores, there's probably some familiarity with the customer or whoever.
Yeah, some of them may be familiar, but some of them is just,
You know, if you walk in and,
right,
gotcha.
merchandise and selling. Okay.
Yep, okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman, and thank you for, I want to, for the record, say that the 7-Eleven stores are submitting written testimony. I have not gotten that, but I need to put on the record that they have agreed to submit that. And in particular, Ms. Neal from the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Omega chapter has submitted testimony to this committee. And I must say that they are very active in Philadelphia in all kinds of philanthropic, community beneficial activities, from shredding to playground restoration, and they've taken the time out to submit this testimony, for which we are very grateful. And so, thank you for your testimony. Are there any others to testify before this committee?
I have one
Yeah.
request. If
Councilman.
thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. If Vanessa Karzova could come back to the stand for one question. It'll be very
Yeah, you, listen, take your time. So I think this is the most, other than some other controversial stuff, the most photogenic group of people to testify in quite some time.
Thank you, Ms. Karzova, for coming back and actually for being here in the first place. You had mentioned earlier in your testimony that there are 4 stores that have no longer selling cigarettes in places of, well, tell me a little bit more about that, and then.
Yeah, so 4 stores that were recruited to just me and colleagues and interns out in the neighborhood talking to corner stores. They voluntarily decided that they'd like to participate in the program. So part of our job is to survey the surrounding neighborhoods and the stores around their store, and seeing, first of all, what does the neighborhood want to see more in their corner store, and also what are stores around them doing. So,
All of these are family-owned or small stores?
yep, in low-income areas.
Okay.
So, Northeast Philly and South Philly
Okay.
is one that I mentioned. So the one that I quoted, Julio Soto, he went tobacco-free July 2016.
And where is that store located? Okay.
South Philly, off
Okay.
of Tasker,
Okay.
on the Broad Street line. He started, growing his catering menu.
Okay.
So he's now part of the Healthy Philly catering menu. So anyone from here that wants to support a small business can order from them, like healthy items like fresh fruit, hoagies, etc.
And what sort of incentive were they all given? I mean, what?
So through the Welcoming Center and Health Department, he had an incentive of $1,000 for participating, and he removed tobacco within a month.
And that was a one-time?
That was a one-time, yes. And still, so it's a one-year program that if they wish to participate, after 1 year, they're free to make the decision to either, stay tobacco-free or if they really want to go back to selling. But he has been tobacco-free and he is not planning to go back. He was able to grow in other areas.
Is there, let me ask you this, is it something that I could visit these 4 stores and just chat with the owners? I mean, you can come with me, or a staffer can come with me.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd like to hear from them, how they did this, why they did this, and will they continue? That's a key question, and I think I've been on record very clearly. I am not a friend of big tobacco in any way, but I am a friend of the little store, because they have enough difficulty. And to take away the right to sell a legal product that is legal throughout the United States, I don't find too good, unless there are some incentives. If there are incentives that actually work, and of course, if somebody wants to do it voluntarily, great. But I'm very concerned of the family business, because, and I think I've told the chairman and many that have listened to me, the value of that store greatly diminishes, unfortunately, because of cash flow. People buy these. People want to buy them. Some are addicted. I can't speak for all, but the fact is it's a legal product. However, conversely, if you're selling to minors, then I have no problem in throwing the book at you, because it's not right. And if you're trying to entrap young people, that's not right either. With something that is seen right here, I couldn't agree more. This is an awful situation, and I can't tell the difference between candy. I don't think, if I put these in front of my grandchildren, I think, and say, oh, which one do you want? They'll all think it's candy, and they'll take, they're not going to smoke because they're too young. They're just way too young. But the fact is, they're attractive to young people. So anything to curtail young people smoking, I am very much in support of. On the other hand, those people that play by the rules and do the right thing and sell a legal product, I think they should also be defended if they wouldn't continue. So I would be very happy to speak to those other 3 stores, and maybe some others, and maybe know a little bit more of your program.
Yeah, I'll definitely leave my information.
If you could get that information to the
Yep.
chair, in case there's any others that want to do, and maybe, Mr. Chairman, you'd want to come along.
I'm always for a road trip.
Yes, you are. It's a good thing, because we can learn. We can learn things. When you actually talk to the person in the field. The City Council of Philadelphia has significant powers, but if we don't understand how they are adhered to or not adhered to, or the problems in the neighborhood, we're not doing our job properly. So road trips, I think, are very appropriate.
Field.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming and sharing
you
your
very
knowledge
much.
with us.
Thank you, Councilman, for that. I am also in possession of artwork that was done by a 4th grade class, and if the camera can get on this, that says, and these are symbols through art that our children are, as they say today, woke. And they're talking about that tobacco is targeted at children, advertisements on their particular level, they understand, and submitted this, and so that's a sign that our young people are aware of what is happening to and around them. In conclusion, I want to say that one of my colleagues, Blondell Reynolds Brown, was trying to convince me about menu labeling. You may remember that bill where she tested me to say, what has more calories, a cheeseburger, a milkshake, or the fries? Cheeseburger, milkshake, or fries. I'm not making you hungry, yes. But consciously, I thought the fries would be the most heavy in calories, and then maybe the cheeseburger, but it was actually the milkshake that had sugar, liquid sugar. And I say that to say knowledge is power. She then showed me a map where there were, quote, food deserts, and in communities like Strawberry Mansion and others where you cannot have healthier choices. And then she showed me a map of where hypertension was, and where premature births were, and where people who had organ failures because of the ingestion of these different calories. And me being pro-business, having run an economic development corporation, I was resistant to anything that was anti-business until the compelling evidence suggested that this was harmful to my neighborhoods in my community, and she had my vote. What I'm saying to you is I don't have vendettas. I'm not, my parents, as I started this, died of health-related issues that could be contributed to smoking. I myself also smoked, but when you put kids at risk, when you target them, that's where, I draw the line there. I'll end with, it's Halloween coming up. If you look at that table and said trick or treat, if you said trick or treat, that's right? For sure it's not a treat, it is definitely a trick. And I will conclude the hearing on the Joint Committees of Public Safety and Children and Youth and end them at the call of the chair, so you may be called back for legislation in this regard. Thank you all very much for your time and your testimony.